Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner, and my guest today, first time guest on Forbidden Planet TV, the one and only Ed Brisson. How are you, mate?
I'm doing all right. Now that I know what day of the week it is, I think I'm doing okay.
Hey, it's a Friday when we're recording this, and by the time Friday rolls around, it's difficult to know what's going on, in life,
Yeah.
in the world, in the
Well,
calendar.
and for me, I was on the road for a month, or I didn't know what day it was basically for an entire month. So I'm just acclimatizing myself with how calendars work again.
Well, thanks for joining us, mate. And we're here to talk about your epic new Predator book, published from Marvel. So, what can you tell me about the jumping off point of the Predator project for you?
So the Predator, our comic, it's set about 30 years in the future, and the sort of main thrust of the story is we follow a girl named Theta, who was the daughter of a couple scientists who were on a sort of an exploratory mission, checking out different planets, just doing research, more or less. And they get completely wiped out by a predator. And she is supposed to be taken back to Earth by the AI on the ship. She's the last and sole survivor. And instead, she sort of overrides the ship and decides that she's going to hunt down predators. Now, when this happens, she's about 12, so she's not doing it right away. But over time, she's sort of, we jump back and forth from when she's about 12 until when she is late 20s. It's a 15-year period, and during that time, she's taught herself how to hunt predators. She's figured out how to track predators and their hunting routes, and has sort of become the scourge of the predators. So rather than being a story about predators hunting humans, this is now a book about a human hunting predators.
Oh, brilliant, mate. Then who's your artist on the book?
So that's Kev Walker, who's absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're just it was Predator always like a meaningful kind of creative IP for you? Is it something you always wanted to do? Because it strikes me that your timing is kind of impeccable with the release of Prey and whatnot.
Predator is, growing up was one of my favorite films. I saw it as a kid at the drive-in theater when those were still a thing, back in '87. So I saw it, I think the first week it came out as I must have been about 12 then. And I loved it. I had it on video. I watched it probably about 100 times. And yeah, I've just always been a Predator fan. I was a few years back on a podcast defending Predator 2 as a solid sequel. I will, give that Predator 2 maybe doesn't necessarily hold up over time, but at the time that it came out, I quite enjoyed it. So yeah, I've always been a Predator fan. When Marvel approached me about doing the book, I think it was the quickest turnaround from being approached to actually pitching and having a book greenlit and ready to go. I had the pitch ready the next day because I had these ideas already. When I was a kid, I used to write a lot of what we would call fan fiction now. Back then, there wasn't a name for it. It was just, kids writing in French class when they should be studying instead. And so as a kid, I wrote a ton of Predator stories. And so this is sort of a chance for me to dive back into all these stories that I'd had when I was a 12, 13, 14-year-old. And so this idea that we're doing right now is basically came, I had it worked out the same night I got the book offered to me. And the book that's coming out right now is largely that idea, with very little changes.
That's awesome, mate. I mean, I think as I mentioned, your timing is impeccable. It's interesting you should mention Predator 2 because we had the director and the star, the producer of Prey on here recently when Prey they were doing the opening event in London, right? And as part of that conversation, I was talking repeatedly about what I think is kind of the high camp brilliance of the original Predator and the fact that most of the other sequels kind of, for me, sort of creatively fall short. But in the process of doing that, I was called out by a couple of viewers who said exactly what you said. It's like, hey man, Predator 2 is like that has definitely got some worthwhile elements in it. And I actually ended up watching it again and enjoyed it much more than I thought I was going to.
I think there's some really solid stuff in there. I think that some of the stuff that falls short is that maybe Glover's character in there is sort of a weird pastiche of like cop cliches that doesn't really hold together as a character. But I think there's a lot of stuff that is fun. It's pretty brutal, but like the idea that the predator is going after the Jamaican gang that has dominated the Colombian gang, because previously they'd gone after the Colombians in Colombia, and that they're sort of trying to level up to the bigger threat. It still kind of carries that on. And yeah, I think there's a lot of fun stuff. And there's not to spoil Prey for anyone who hasn't seen it. I just saw it 2 nights ago, but there's a nice tie between Predator 2 and Prey as well. That actually originally is from the comic books, from the old Dark Horse comic books, but still.
No, it is indeed very nice. Did you enjoy it, mate? Prey.
I did. I like I said earlier, I was on the road when it came out, and I didn't want to watch it in a hotel because they all for some reason have the picture smoothing turned on and you can't turn it off.
Oh man, yeah, I'm totally with you on that. That drives me bananas.
I don't know what I think that's the default setting, right? So I think they just throw them in the rooms and they don't care. So I waited till I got home, and so I watched it 3 nights ago now, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah, I like that they went in a different direction from the past films, and it was interesting, because our comic obviously takes place in the not too distant future, but it was interesting to see, Project Red. They went the opposite way. We went in the future, they went in the past, which I thought was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think the power of it is it kind of eschews most of that like high camp stuff, and in fact plays as an incredibly straight film, and I was kind of really enjoying all of the like Native American detail, and was kind of getting off on that. I got to the point, well, the best compliment I could pay it really is that I got to a point where I didn't really care it was a Predator movie, and I was glad the Predator showed up, but I was enjoying it on its own terms before that.
Right. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think it did a pretty good job. Like, I think one of the things that people forget about the first Predator film is that, the film was 107 minutes, I believe, or 108 minutes, somewhere there. And a Predator is on screen for 7 minutes throughout the entire film. And I think that's one of the things that some of the later films sort of forgot or got away from, is that the Predator works best when it's a boogeyman and you don't see it all the time. Now, in my comic, I'm doing the opposite because we see the Predator a lot. But I think with the films, that's the one thing that you really just want to reserve, showing the Predator and use them as sparingly as possible. And it makes them scarier when you do that. It's like, Halloween with Michael Myers, you don't, when the threat of him is better than the sight of him. Yeah, and same with Predators.
I think that's very well said. I also really love your Scourge of the Predators, young person dedicating their life to learning how to track and hunt this species. I think it's such an interesting inversion of the way we normally see it done.
Yeah, thanks. I think we want to get into a bit more about how they operate, mostly for the sake for where I want to take the story going forward. So, it serves sort of a dual purpose to have her studying them. But I think we also haven't, I think in some of the movies they've tried to have, people understand who they are, but always on our turf and never out there. And so, we just want to explore that a little bit. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great, mate. We're talking about Ed's Predator series from Marvel Comics, which you can order from the links attached to this conversation, and also order the second printing variant cover from the links attached to our conversation. Ed, before we close out, it strikes me that you had quite a very interesting ride over the last 10 years or so, because you've got all those great creator-owned books that quite rightly have brought you a lot of kudos, and then you've been able to play in the kind of Marvel wheelhouse, and now you're getting to play with an IP that you've loved since you were a kid. How has that felt to you?
Yeah, great. It's I love it. I grew up loving comic books, and any way that I can sort of just do that and not have to have a real job is great. So it's been thrilling, you know, like I think for me, it's great to like bounce between creator owned and work for hire. It just stimulates different parts of my brain and it just kind of keeps me interested in what I'm doing.
Yeah, well said, mate. And amen to anybody who's dedicating themselves to not having a real job, which is something I
Yes.
wholeheartedly endorse. It's great to meet you, mate. And you've got some more great books coming out in the near future, not the least of which is Batman Incorporated. So I'd love it if you could come back and join us on a future episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I will look forward to seeing you then. You take
All
care of
right.
yourself, man. All the best.
You too. Thanks.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.